Hello and welcome back to the Not the Old Firm YouTube channel. My name is Ben Banks. Back to review the last League Cup semi-final that occurred this weekend between Livingston and St Mirren, and it's the Lions who do roar into the final where they will meet St Johnstone after a 1-0 victory over St Mirren. If you haven't already subscribed to our channel, really appreciate if you do that. Got a reaction to St Johnstone v Hibs. St Johnstone winning that 3-0 and a really comfortable performance from Callum Davidson's men, who now know who they will face in February's showpiece event. So go do check that out if you want to see the St Johnstone Hibs equivalent to this. Is set to review Livingston v St Mirren. Also on the channel as well. If you're checking this out, do subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with us, because we're going to have an interview with former Motherwell manager Stephen Robinson less than a month after his departure from Fir Park. He sits down with me to review his time at Motherwell and what went right, what went wrong, and a bit of everything in between. So do check that out. On to the review of the game, a predictably tight one between Livingston and St Mirren, but it is Livy who do go through. A ninth-minute goal was all it took to separate the sides at Hampden. Josh Mullen's free kick into the box. Efe Ambrose hitting the bar with his effort from that free kick before Scott Robinson, who's in great form just now, on hand to just poke home. And that was all that was needed. It wasn't a particularly pretty game. I think David Martindale hilariously after the game, which is pretty much a staple mark of his press conferences and interviews and stuff, since he's took over the manager's job, basically said that the ball needed to go to hospital and get some bandages after that. And I think it'd be fair to say most fans who watched that would agree with that assessment. Not a lot of football played. I think you could tell that it was sort of two smaller clubs looking to reach that final stage. Really big game for both of these sides, and a defeat would perhaps be a wee bit more painful. If St Johnstone had lost to Hibs, then perhaps it'd not be easy to take, but they'd be aware that they weren't the favourites in that one, and Hibs were expected to win, and perhaps the eventual outcome did come to the fore, whereas the pain Hibs felt, they were beaten by the underdog, so to speak, and that one was obviously a bitter pill for them to swallow. In this one, it's a bit different because they were so even. They really couldn't have called this either way, and both managers said before the game that the St Mirren was the favourite. That's what David Martindale said. Jim Goodwin saying Livingston were the favourite. So that pretty much told you before a ball was kicked how this one would sort of pan out. And once Livingston did get that goal, things did change a wee bit. Livingston were going for it early on, and then as the first half wore on, they started to drop a wee bit deeper, and that sort of continued into the second half. Overall, you'd probably say Livingston deserved the lead going into half time, but in the second half, St Mirren probably had the better of it, at least in the attacking chances, because Livingston didn't really cause Jack Anwick too much problems outside that goal. Up the other end, though, I suppose, Max Stryjek also wasn't really tested by St Mirren's forward line. So a quiet day for both goalkeepers, but when it mattered, Scott Robinson stepped up for his team, and he's been in great form recently. Also, speaking about David Martindale's story in a bit, but Scott Robinson's went from 4 years to playing for East Fife, not looking like professional football would be a thing for him after his time with injuries and a spell at Hearts and things like that. And he's worked his way up through the leagues and now is a man of the match winner at Hampden in a semi-final. So great story for him. And he's in great form just now. He's sort of epitomising everything that's good about Livingston, and an absolute horrific player to play against, and that is a compliment, as has been said many times by people in higher positions than me. Just a complete nuisance, really fast. For being 5'6", he is fairly decent in the air. He was matching Joe Shaughnessy and Conor McCarthy fairly well, and they're both, having spoke to them both in person, are not exactly 5'6". I'm more akin to Scott Robinson's height, and both of them towered over me. So I can imagine it'd be a pretty hard shift jumping and trying to win headers against him. But he did that fairly well all afternoon. Yeah, great story for him. You need to feel a bit for Jim Goodwin's side. I mean, they knocked out Aberdeen. I was at Aberdeen and I was at the Rangers game in which they won. They won them right at the death, causing everybody in the press box complete hassle because everybody frantically rewriting reports and things like that, especially in the Rangers games, which an iconic match really it could have been if they'd have gone on to win this cup. But I think Jim Goodwin and a few other St Mirren players said at the time that those results just aren't remembered in the same way if they don't go and win this cup. And unfortunately, they've just about fallen short, probably in the one knockout game that they were at least on an even playing field. with their opposition. They weren't expected to get past Aberdeen. They weren't expected to get past Rangers in particular, who St Mirren still stand as the only team to beat them this season across Europe and in domestic form as well. So to go through all of that and then lose just at the final hurdle before the final is a real blow for them. But on Davy Martindale, I mean, his story is well documented. It's been well covered, especially everybody knew about his story, but especially in the press this week leading up to this Cup semi-final, about his rehabilitation from time in prison. And now he's still waiting on a fit and proper person test, which 11 games into his reign, he's still not lost. He's been manager of the month. He's going to be a League Cup final manager. It just seems completely bizarre. Obviously, they need to go through this process, and it's right that they go through this process at the higher authorities in Scottish football, but it would be a complete joke and an utter farce if it's anything but Davy Martindale can continue as Livingston manager. As a shining light for rehabilitation in Scottish football, a real feel-good story in a season. Despite the fact it's been full of drama, it has been a pretty dark season. Let's not get away with it, with the lack of fans, clubs fighting for survival. Yeah, it's not been a great season off the park, and it's been a great story to look back on in this season. One of the few shining lights, especially for Livingston fans. Obviously, it didn't start too great for them this season. Gary Holt did great things at Livingston. Felt like he'd taken the club as far as he could. Davy Martindale stepped into his shoes, and he's still to lose a game. I don't think they will lose a game the way they're playing. They just don't seem likely to lose to anybody. But yeah, he's still obviously as Livingston manager, but I suppose it's not rubber stamped until that fit and proper person test is conducted. I think 10:30 on Tuesday will be the meeting, and then the decision will be sometime after that. So fingers crossed that's fine. But if it's anything other than him being fully certified as Livingston manager, then there will be some serious questions to answer for those in that call and who are making that decision. But in the meantime, one for him to enjoy a magnificent result for Livingston. And again, Livingston fans don't like hearing the story perhaps, or perhaps it's worn out their journey from League One to the Premiership, but this just adds another level to it, that they are going to a League Cup final, and on current form, you would probably fancy Livingston over St Johnstone. St Johnstone will fancy their chances against Livingston. They've put out Hibs, Aberdeen, Celtic, Rangers, Hearts, Dundee United. The traditional top six aren't there, and it's going to be great to see a couple of the smaller clubs, at least one of them, obviously win a cup this season, providing we don't know what's going to happen with the Scottish Cup yet. So who knows, maybe teams like St Mirren and Hibs will get the chance to compete again for those trophies. But in the meantime, in the League Cup, Livingston or St Johnstone will end Celtic's dominance of trophies in the SPFL, which is great for our game, that the trophies are spread about the country a bit more. But that's all I've got time for on this quick review. We hope you do have enjoyed. Do remember to check out our interview with Stephen Robinson that's out on Monday. And as well as that, we'll have all the build-up on socials and our website to the Wednesday fixtures. There won't be a Premiership review or preview for those fixtures. That'll be back before the weekend's matches. I've decided to take a couple of days off and try and take a breather from what has been a very turbulent few months in Scottish football, and will continue to be into February, which I think sees the Scottish football calendar ramp up to pretty much games. At least I think the biggest break we've got in the next sort of 3 weeks is 3 or 4 days. So very busy time, as well as that the transfer window's coming to an end as well. So plenty to cover, and we'll have it all on our website and social media. Right, enough of my rambling. Do remember to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and until next time, take it easy.